What's up, guys? It's Toad back with you. As always, told you I'd be back in the evening to throw down some analysis on NHL and NBA. I have one play in each of those sports, as well as the college basketball play that I apologize. The number was already gone this morning, but we can reanalyze that, reassess that if you want to. Here, let me get back to the page that I usually share here. This pregame market I don't even know what you call it. This pregame event center here that shows you all the market numbers and whatever. I don't know how accurate it is, but it's the most accurate free tool out there, as I always say, I think, or the most helpful, I would say. So, as you guys probably know, if you watched me this morning, I do have a play on Ole Miss plus 3.5. That is my only college basketball play. And I apologize. This morning, the line had already dropped. Let me see. Where is it? Tennessee's down from 4.5 to 2.5 here. 57% of tickets on, 57% of the cash coming in on Ole Miss. I mean, I wouldn't stop you if you're going to come in and try to play plus 2.5 on this. That number probably still being out there. Or just go balls to the wall and fire on the money line. Because I explained it this morning. I'm not going to rehash it, but I do like the spot in that one. As far as my market reads from this morning, Michigan, the money has come in on them and moved that line up. So that one looks good to me. It does look like the cash is coming in on the Florida side as well after this number moved up to 3.5. So I do like my read on that. I kind of like my read on the Butler side too, and you're getting extra value now. That lines up to 3.5 with less of the cash on Xavier. They look like a public road favorite to me. Looks like Missouri is a public road favorite. So all the stuff that I said this morning seems to be in line with what the money is telling you as far as a bunch of those games that I went over this morning. And then we do have, I have it on already. I actually, I logged into my ESPN Plus on my TV over here. So we have Southern Miss and Georgia Southern already playing. Georgia Southern shot up to a 6.5-point favorite when this game went off. I honestly don't know what to tell you about that. Like, I thought that there was value coming in and taking the points with Southern Miss, even when it was down at like 4.5. There's got to be injuries or something here. I don't know why this line is that high. But it looks like Georgia Southern, pretty public. Southern Miss, like I said, may have a little bit of an edge to some extent just because they played yesterday. So they're familiarized with the venue. They have the momentum, whatever. Same thing could be said for UL Lafayette here. And it does look like the money is still coming in on them. As I mentioned all these games this morning, but I'm just looking at these tournament games just to see what if my thoughts are panning out. The money looks like it's not coming in UT Martin anymore with more of the tickets than the cash. But the line was driven up to 2, so a little bit of movement on that. Looks like money actually came in on Morehead State driving that line up. 78% of the cash on them. I had conflicting thoughts on that one. The money looks like it is definitely coming in on UMKC. They are the better team in that one. Also on Central Connecticut. I mean, I think they are the better team. Looks like the less of the cash and the tickets is on Long Island. So I mentioned this morning that line seemed kind of out of whack. Like, why is it 5 points higher than what it was when Long Island hosted Chicago State in the previous game? Seems like there would be no value in laying the points on Long Island. I don't know if there's an injury there or whatever. St. Francis, the late money looks like it's actually driven them down. So the money actually looks like it's coming in a Wagner, 64% of the cash. Sometimes you got to look at these late market reads, man, and sometimes you get more information from that. Fairleigh Dickinson up to 3.5. Looks like they have more of the cash coming in on them. And this is not really going to be a very public bet game, really. And then Gardner Webb against USC Upstate. They moved up to a 6-point favorite. They're definitely the better team here, as I mentioned. But it looks like they are public, too, with less of the cash on them. So I don't know what I would want to do. But sometimes my analysis trumps the market read, too. So even though the market read is usually a pretty strong indicator, but we'll see. The best play that I thought was on the board, again, I already beat the best number on that. So that was Ole Miss. So that's the play there. Let's move over to NHL here, man. We do have a few NHL games here. I do have one play in one of them, and it is on a total. We have Washington is at the New York Rangers. This is an interesting one, man, because the Rangers are starting to play better, and they, I think, need the game a lot more because they're trying to get into the playoffs. Although you could have said that about Ottawa in this last game against Washington, and Washington did beat Ottawa, but I'm not sure they're going to beat the Rangers in this travel spot where they're just going to New York for one game here. The Rangers, I think, are going to be up for it. I would have to imagine. They're starting to play a lot better, playing basically like we kind of thought they would. They're coming off 2 straight shutouts, but Shesterkin was rested on the second. So even though they're playing 3 games in 4 days, it is all at home at least, and 4 games in 6 days. But again, all at home, no travel. Coming off a couple of easier games, and Shesterkin got a rest in there. So I would probably lean to the Rangers in this game. They are up from -106 to -117. 54% of tickets, 55% of the cash coming in on them. I agree with the market read on that one as well. Ottawa is at Chicago, and I mentioned this because Ottawa is coming off that close game against Washington. So Washington, I forgot to mention, as I should have probably mentioned, Washington is coming off that shootout game, but it's a game where I think they got a scare. I mean, they were hosting Chicago as a big favorite, and I really don't think it was the greatest spot for Washington in that one. And I don't think it was. I forget what the spot was. I don't think it was, but I don't even remember. But they almost got caught. So in a way, maybe Washington will like turn it around and focus a little bit more in the game against the Rangers. But I just think the Rangers need the game more, and I think they're going to go all out. And the market, like, it looks kind of tempting to take Washington, the team with the better record, in what you think is going to be a competitive game as a slight underdog. So I would not agree with that sentiment if that is going to be the public sentiment in that game, which it seems like it might be to some extent. Ottawa, they were just awful coming out of the All-Star break and going into the All-Star break for that matter. They finally won a game, but it was against San Jose, and then they turned around and they played tough. So maybe that game did give them some new momentum, but they lost in a shootout to Washington. Now they got to turn around and play Chicago on the road. Doesn't look like the greatest spot. It looks like a sandwich spot, and they do have the Rangers up next. So I don't love this spot at all for Ottawa. Ullmark has played a bunch of games in a row. He's played all of the games coming out of the All-Star break, 4 games. So I don't know if he's going to finally get a rest. He was hurt, and he came back right before the All-Star break. He is Ottawa's best goalie, although he actually played during the All-Star break as well. I think he was on the Swedish team in the 4 Nations, but whatever. So for Ottawa here, you're probably either going to get a somewhat tired Ullmark, I would say, after playing this many games in a row, or they're going to go back to Forsberg. I don't know which it's going to be, but it looks like the goaltending situation might not be that great for Washington, for Ottawa. However, Chicago, they just returned home from a road trip, and they actually played really well, even though it was a road trip return, because they actually were focused on the LA Kings, maybe. But what happened in this game is just crazy, man. The Blackhawks won this game 5-1. It did include an empty net, but if you look at the stats, the stats do not tell you that this was a 5-1 Chicago win. Chicago got outshot 42-19 in the game. They got out-hit. They only got 1 penalty. It looks like a very clean game as far as the reffing was concerned. And the Kings dominated the face-off percentage to at 58%. Yet somehow Chicago won the game 5-1. So that is a misleading result for Chicago, and that's a big win for Chicago when you blow out a good team like the Kings. So the Chicago is also in a bad spot here. Chicago also, their goalie was out of his mind last night, and it was Knight, who they got over from Florida, who was Florida's backup for Bobrovsky. I don't think he'd done that well for them, and I think that was his first game with Chicago, so I think he was really pumped up for it. So that was an angle I was not thinking about when I looked at that game. I didn't play the game, but that was another angle where when a backup goalie like gets traded and then he gets to like immediately play for that team, he usually wants to do really well to show like his worth. So I believe that's what happened. He played out of his mind. So it looks like Chicago's probably gonna have a regression in this game, in my opinion. And I would lean to the over in this game. It looks like 85% of tickets, 90% of the cash coming in on the over in this one. And again, I think both teams are kind of in bad spots coming off tough games here. Do I want to play the over? Because I do have an over in one of the other games. No, I'll stay away, but it looks like my first instinct on this was, like the Ottawa's in a bad spot. Maybe I'd lean to Chicago, but the more I look at it, Chicago is in a bad spot and coming off a really misleading result too. So I think the over does make sense there, and the money looks like it has driven the line up from 6 juice to the under to 6 juice to the over. So some money coming in the over there. Toronto at Vegas is a big game as well. Toronto just lost to San Jose. Now they start a road trip out at Vegas. So you got to think they're going to turn it around after that. You have an ugly loss, and then you start a road trip. That's like a double focus spot because you're usually focused to get the road trip off on the right foot, but you're coming off a bad game as well. But then again, that did end their winning momentum as they'd won every single game out of the All-Star break. So there's a possibility that hangs them over into this game, but more than likely, I think they will be focused, especially in a bounce back spot, especially because Vegas is a good opponent, so they're going to be focused. Vegas should be focused as well. They've had a couple of days off, and they're not traveling. They're just staying at home off a nice win over New Jersey. So both of these teams, you think both teams are going to show up in this game? They should. Vegas up from minus 125 to minus 154. 53% of the cash and tickets on Vegas. I don't even know which way I would lean in this game, to be honest. The money has come in on Vegas, but I don't know that I really would agree with that because usually I look for that team coming off that uglier loss that's starting a road trip, whereas Vegas is coming off a better game, a win. So slight lean to Toronto, especially getting them at a bigger and bigger underdog price here. In that Ottawa game, by the way, they're up from minus 200 to minus 238 on the money line. 51% of tickets, 82% of the cash on Chicago, though. So even though the line looks like it's moved up, it looks like the cash percentage is coming in on Chicago. Then we have my actual game, which is this ugly Anaheim-Vancouver game. And this is the type of game where I do like to come in and go over, and I'm going over 5.5 in this one. And this line looks like it's gone from, where are we looking at here? Where's the game? From 5.5 juice to the over more heavily to juice to the over a little bit less heavily. Looks like public, but I mean, is a public better really going to come in and play it over in an Anaheim-Vancouver game? Probably not, with two teams that are not known to be that good this year. 92% of tickets, 95% of the cash on the over. I am on the over in this one. I think it's just a bad spot for both teams. When I looked at this, I was like, man, this is a bad spot. First off, I was like, this is a terrible spot for Anaheim because they just clobbered Edmonton 6-2. And now they're coming off that game. And they play Vancouver for a second straight road game after doing that. It looks like Dostal will probably be in net again. Although it worries me a little bit because if you look at his history, virtually every game he's played against Vancouver has landed right on 5. Although that doesn't dissuade me because I think the spot should at least kind of give it that edge and put it over a little bit. And we're talking about two teams. Anaheim gets involved in a lot of high-scoring games, man. Vancouver does not, but Anaheim not really known for being great defensively. They can score, so they've played a lot of high-scoring games recently. I know they're coming off a really high-scoring game. Vancouver isn't, but still, I think this is a spot where Anaheim's going to be focused because it is Vancouver, so they're going to try to be focused, and this is what you want for an over. You want a team to be focused, so they're going to be trying to score, but you want them to have, like, tired legs, which affects their defense, and I think that might be the case here. Playing a second straight road game, and not only that, but they're on a back-to-back. They beat Edmonton last night, so I think you're going to get some tired legs here. I don't know which one of their goalies is coming in this game. You're either going to get a goalie playing 2 nights in a row, or you're going to get their backup goalie, so that looks like it's more conducive to the over as well. Even if Gibson is in there, he would be the backup. And then this game, I didn't actually have a whole lot of shots. Or no, actually it did. Never mind. I was looking at Vancouver. This game did have a lot of shots. So a lot of scoring opportunities in what was a high-scoring game. And I think you may see something similar in this game. Vancouver, on the other hand, I look at them and I was like, oh, I'm going to play against... actually, they're coming off a couple high-scoring games too. So never mind. Both these teams playing high-scoring games. Vancouver, I was like, oh, I want to play Vancouver here probably because Anaheim's in such a bad spot. Not so fast because Vancouver just went on a 5-game road trip coming out of the All-Star break, the Four Nations break. They've been on the road since then. So they've been on the road for a long time. And you know what I always say, even if it was a bad road trip, you return home from that road trip, it tends to be not a totally focused spot. So in their case, yeah, I don't think they're going to be focused. But maybe they will try a little bit just because, well, there are a couple of things. This is the reason why I'm on the over. I think they may be focused for a couple of reasons, which I'll get to in a minute. I think they're going to be tired because they're coming back from that road trip. And a lot of times you are not focused when you return home from a road trip because you got family life to get back to. You got distractions to get back to. And yeah, Anaheim is a bad team, and they got better teams coming up next in Minnesota and Dallas. So they may be looking ahead. So this is a bad spot for Vancouver. The thing is, they just lost at Anaheim 2 games ago on that road trip. Ugly, 5-2. So I think you're actually going to get focused from Vancouver. They've had a couple of days off, which I think actually kind of exacerbates that lack of focus. It does mean they're going to be a little bit less tired, but if they're less focused, hopefully it shows up on the defensive end. You're probably going to get Lankinen again. And in Lankinen's last couple of games that he's played against Anaheim, both of those games have gone over at 6 and 7, so slightly over, but still. I don't know if it's going to be him or Silovs, but we'll see what happens. I think it's a bad spot for both teams, and I think it's a situation where you take the over, especially when I think you're getting a little bit of a discounted price on the total, because the total has to be a little bit lower when it's teams that just look bad, like Anaheim, a team that's that bad. You tend to not want to play them over. So I think you get a little bit of a discount on the over in games like that. Will, what's up, man? Thank you. Which is what I've been playing, for a while now. And then St. Louis, LA, fine. Let's talk about every game. LA lost to Chicago in their last game, but they're returning home from a road trip, man. So even though that was a horrendous loss and a misleading loss where they actually dominated the game, they're returning home from a road trip as well, although it is a bit of a shorter road trip, but they lost to St. Louis during that road trip, very similar to Vancouver, so maybe the Kings are going to show up in this game to try to get a little bit of quick revenge. St. Louis, they're coming off a tough loss to Dallas and continuing a road trip here. And they last played a couple days ago, so they have had a little bit of rest. But they lost a long win streak that they had, a 4-game win streak. So that is the type of loss that could maybe potentially hang you over, although they'll still be focused on LA. But again, they did already beat LA not that long ago, and I think I might have lost on that game too. I can't remember. No, I lost playing on the Blues, I think. Didn't I? I forget. I lost on a couple of Blues games recently, either playing on them or against them. I can't remember. In this game, LA is down from minus 175 to minus 159, but they got 74% of tickets, 92% of the cash coming in on them. So again, I don't really know what way I would even want to lean there with, I think, both teams not being in the greatest spots, but it is a revenge spot for LA. They are the better team, so I would kind of expect them to win that game. Vancouver down from minus 235 to minus 188, even though Anaheim's in a really bad spot. 52% of tickets and 53% of the cash, though. So it looks like the cash is coming in on them. So a lot of weird discrepancies in the market here where the cash has come in opposite of where the line looks like it's moved. But whatever. That was my one play on that over. Now we got NBA before I get out of here. We do have my Boston Celtics playing in a little while. In a half hour, they're hosting Portland. And Boston is coming off 2 big games, blowing that game against Cleveland. Huge game and just an epic collapse. But lucky for Boston, they focus on good teams usually. And they had another good team coming in with Denver. And they were able to beat Denver. So now I think this is maybe a spot where Boston's going to overlook their opponent like they tend to do, even though Philadelphia, their next opponent, is a team that the Celtics already did get revenge on twice after they lost to Philly on Christmas with a very depleted Philly team in that game. They actually beat Philly the next couple of times. So I don't know if they're really going to pay much attention to Philly, who's still depleted, of course, because Embiid is out for the year, but they still may consider that to be a bigger game than Portland because it is still kind of like an Eastern Conference rival. And then they got the Lakers up next. Philadelphia is tomorrow, by the way. So this looks like a spot where the Celtics are not going to have full focus against Portland. Portland is in the middle of a road trip, though, and they've been on the road for a while, so they may be starting to get tired. It can tend to tire you out when you get like this long in a road trip. And their road trip, this has been a brutal schedule, man. They're playing 3 games in 4 days, 4 games in 6 days, 5 games in 8 days, and 6 games in 10 days, all in different cities. That is difficult, even though you know they're probably going to be focused on this. They're coming off taking Cleveland to overtime, and then I think they upset Philadelphia, right? Philadelphia was still a favorite. No, they actually weren't. They moved to a 1.5-point underdog in that game, but still they beat Philadelphia, even though it was the Embiid-less Philadelphia. So maybe Portland isn't really going to be able to continue that effort because they've had a really good road trip too. Every game has been a win except for that Cleveland game where they took it into overtime, but they did beat bad teams prior to that in Charlotte, Utah, and Washington and Brooklyn. I mean, those are all bad teams. So not impressive wins, but impressive nonetheless. They've won every game except for one on the road trip and almost beat Cleveland. But of course, Cleveland was in a really bad spot coming off that huge comeback against the Celtics. I had mentioned that I liked Portland in that game, and I wish I played it. I almost did. But now it's kind of a bad spot for both teams, to be honest. It just, as a Celtics fan, to me, it looks like one of those spots where the Celtics aren't going to focus on their opponent, though. And they're down from 11.5 to 9, which may mean that they're actually going to rest somebody in this game. 71% of tickets, 72% of the cash coming in on the Celtics. So they actually have more of the cash on them. I don't think that line move is all just money coming in on the Trailblazers, though. I think it's somebody being rested here. It looks like Porzingis and Holiday and Tatum are all missing this game. So that would be why. So the Celtics are going to be without 3 starters in this game. So who knows what we want to think about this game. And former Celtic Robert Williams isn't coming back until the 7th, and it looks like Grant is still out as well for the Trailblazers. But the Trailblazers will have a more complete lineup in this game. The Celtics, maybe just because the backups are getting a chance, maybe the Celtics will actually play a little bit better, because I think it usually tends to be games where they have their starters still in there, where they just think, oh, we're going to beat this team easily. So maybe it'll be better that they're down 3 starters. So this is the NBA, man. I mean, teams are just resting guys all over the place. I don't want to touch it. There's no way. No way I'm touching that game. My favorite game, though, which I'm going to talk about, I'm going to skip a lot of these games that are not that interesting, but this is one that I like. I mentioned that I had this play this morning. Dallas plus 10.5. It's going to be plus 10 now probably. And the market looks like it's in agreement with this. Actually, we're up to 11.5 now. Excuse me. So 9.5 up to 11.5 now. 88% of tickets, 87% of the cash. So Bucks are still public for sure. The line had moved down to 10, so I'm kind of surprised it's back up to 11.5 with the Bucks being public and with less of the cash on them. Nobody is going to want to take this depleted Dallas team who now has no AD and no Kyrie. That rhymes. But I want to do it, man, because this is an injured player spot. When you have a star player like Kyrie go down, I think the team plays well in that first game without him, man. And that is what they did actually. Well, actually, when they got Davis for the first time, they played well. And then when Davis got injured in that game, I mean, I don't know if I would say they played well, but it's not like they got destroyed in the next game. They only lost by 1 to Sacramento, and then they actually continued playing pretty competitively. So this Dallas team, yeah, I know Kyrie was in most of those games, although I don't think he played every single one of these games. So Irving has missed a few games, and they've still played all right, but Irving missed that last game against Sacramento, and they got blown out in the game. It was a gruesome leg injury that torn ACL, I think, that might end his career because he's not young anymore. So bad situation. But I think they're going to get back up off the mat, man, and play for Kyrie after he got injured, even though this is a Dallas team that's been dealing with tons and tons of injuries. They're a ridiculously thin team here. We know that Milwaukee has been dealing with a bunch of injuries too, although it looks like Giannis is going to play. Lillard is going to play. I don't know why they're listed as day-to-day instead of a game-time decision. Like, what the fuck is the difference? Coaches playing games with a stupid injury report, all Bill Belichick shit. PJ Washington is still out for the Mavs, but it looks like, for the most part, I guess they're not missing any other key components besides him, Kyrie, and AD. That's it. And Luka, obviously, not being there anymore. But I think this is the spot, man, because you're getting a huge number on Dallas because of that. They're in the injured player theory spot now. They got killed in their last game, and now they get to leave home and go out on the road, which I think is also a positive. Because when you have a really bad game like that at home, one of the best things for you is to just say fuck it and go out on the road, and then you don't have to listen to what the local media is saying about you and whatever. And by the way, they're playing Milwaukee, and they just got crushed by Milwaukee at home, even with Kyrie, by 15 points on March 1st, 2 games ago. So Dallas is going to be in revenge mode here. This is a quick turnaround road revenge spot, which is a good angle in the NBA as well. And they're going to be getting extra value here. Dallas is a 2.5-point underdog at home in this one, and now the line is swung all the way to Milwaukee being a 10, 11.5-point favorite, whatever it is, at home now, which is a huge swing. And yeah, I know you have to account for the Kyrie injury, but should it move that much? I mean, based on what Milwaukee was at Dallas, this line should probably be maybe like 3.5 for Milwaukee if Kyrie was playing. But then you take him out, then what do you move the line to? Maybe like 8, 9 would be fair. So I think this line is just too high. It's a good spot. That first game where the star player is injured, the team usually steps up their effort and goes all out in that one game and puts in a huge effort there. It is a revenge spot for getting embarrassed on their home floor. So all of that, it looks like a very good spot to play Dallas here. Milwaukee, they have a bunch of reasons why their spot is pretty bad. Not only did they just beat Dallas, but they are returning home from a road trip, and they're playing a back-to-back after playing these 2 high-scoring games. They actually beat Denver, then they beat Dallas, and then they beat Atlanta last night in a barn burner, high-scoring game that was close the whole way, so they really couldn't let up in this game. So they're going to be the team with no rest as well, coming off of that, coming back home from Atlanta, whereas at least Dallas has had 1 day of rest, and they're just returning back home at least off of that. Dallas, let me see. Oh, no, excuse me. Dallas is going on the road. What am I saying? Atlanta's returning home, which returning home is not a good spot anyway. What am I saying? Dallas is just going, up from Dallas to Milwaukee. So, so whatever. So the travel is actually probably slightly longer for Dallas, but whatever. They had the day off yesterday. I don't care about that. All the other situational angles look like it screams you got to take the points with Dallas. So that is what I'm doing. The public is heavily on the Bucks here, so we're fading the public as well. And then we got Sacramento is at Denver. This might be a spot where maybe Sacramento, they've started turning it around again, man. They've started playing better again after that trade. They're starting to get some chemistry, I think, with their new pieces with Levine there. And Sabonis is still out, though, I believe. So Sabonis is one of their best players. He's their best rebounder. He got hurt, but Valanciunas has come in and been pretty good for them. So I don't know, but they are coming off a few big games, man, and they have to continue playing these games, beating Houston and Dallas on the road, and now they got to go into elevation and play Denver. Maybe not the easiest spot for them, but Denver is returning home from a road trip, so they're in an even worse spot. Returning home from a road trip and coming off that game against Boston, where that's a game that they probably stepped up for. They've been gone away from home for a while. The extra rest, I don't know, is really going to help them that much because, again, that extra rest when you return home just kind of gets you more in home life mode there and can tend to be more of a distraction, which is something we talk about in baseball more than other sports. But if I was going to play this game, I think it would be to take the points with the Kings or leave it alone. The line has actually moved down from 9 to 6.5 now, though. So I don't know. Maybe that means Sabonis is coming back in this game. Saboner, the boner. 82% of tickets, 76% of the cash on the Nuggets. They're public with less of the cash on them. And by the way, Sabonis, I'm so old. I remember watching his father. I think it was his father, Arvydas Sabonis, playing. He was another big white man playing for Portland. So I think that probably was his father. So I would probably look to take the points with the Kings, but we got to see. Yeah, Sabonis is still out. Malik Monk is out too, and he's one of the better players on the Kings too. So I don't know what the deal is here. Why is this? Oh, the line's probably moved down because we're probably going to get the Nuggets maybe resting somebody, but I don't know. It says Jokic is a game-time decision, so does that line mean Jokic isn't going to play in this game? I don't know, man. So, again, you just got to pay attention to the personnel. At least in my Dallas play, we know what the personnel is going to be there. And then Detroit is at the Clippers. I mean, that's a game where the Clippers, they have just not been playing well recently, and they're on a back-to-back, and they've just been all over the place. They had a long road trip. They came back home during Oscar weekend, lost to the Lakers twice, went back out on the road to face Phoenix, and now they're coming back home again from that to face Detroit, although they did lose to Detroit during that first road trip out to Detroit on the 24th. They do have the Knicks up next, which is a big game, but the Clippers, having lost 6 of their last 7 games, I think you're probably going to see them be focused in this game. I don't know, man. And Detroit, they just absolutely annihilated Utah, so to me, I don't think this is really a road, even though it looks like it's a road trip return spot on the schedule for the Clippers. I don't think it really is because they were just home in LA for 2 games against the Lakers. So they were already home. They're only returning home from 1 quick trip to Phoenix. So I think the spot might be worse for Detroit, actually, after just destroying Utah, even though Utah's not good, obviously. But now having to come down out of elevation. And then, of course, you got to look at what the injury report is telling you. And Kawhi Leonard is going to miss this game. He is out for the Clippers. Ben Simmons also out, but Leonard is kind of the piece that we're really more concerned with here. Ron Harper Jr. is going to be out for Detroit, who may be the biggest piece there for them being out. I'm calling these guys pieces, man. They're pieces of meat. Pistons up from 2.5 to 4, but I think a lot of that is because of the Kawhi not playing situation. 67% of tickets, 62% of the cash on the Pistons. So they are public with less of the cash on them. I would lean to taking the points of the Clippers in that one, but obviously I'm not doing it. And that will do it. Let's watch some. Georgia Southern is starting to pull away in this game a little bit, but let's watch some Sun Belt tournament action, baby. It's March Madness time officially, man, with all these tournament games going on now. One more time, my only place, and I'm being very selective. Ole Miss in college basketball plus 3.5. You got to get 2.5 now on that, but I apologize for that. But that is the play. So take from that what you will. NHL, we got an over in Anaheim and Vancouver. Back to my totals, which I haven't played in a while. I always play overs when I do play them, and I pick specific spots to do it. That's Anaheim and Vancouver over 5.5. I think you can only find minus 115. Maybe a little bit better on that. And Dallas Mavs plus 10.5, or I think you can get plus 11.5 now on that. That's going to do it. Peace out. And Tower Gang Tone on Twitter, by the way, and it is Tower Gang Wednesday. Patreon.com/Tower Gang. Almost didn't plug it. Join us tonight in a few hours, man. 9:11 p.m. Eastern for the most offensive podcast that has ever existed, man. You'll love it. You'll laugh. You won't be able to help but laugh. So join us then. Peace out, guys.